This is a Mac, much better camera. I'm using my
Awesome.
Mac.
All right, so we are live. So let's start with this session that we have. So I'm super excited about this one because generally क्या होता है, we are taught finance in a lot of boring ways, even at B schools or otherwise. But यहाँ पे we are here to make it slightly interesting, I would say. And who better to have with us than Mr. Abid Hassan, who is an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad, is the founder CEO of Sensible, and has been in the markets for a long time. And some of you who would have been following him on Sensible, you would have seen his daily series wherein he talks about the markets in general, kya lag raha hai market. So I'm sure that all of you have checked it out. And if you haven't, do check it out. It's a nice, insightful show that we have. And he is going to walk us through personal finance का journey, क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. Very, very important. क्या चीजें नहीं करनी है. It's very important to know what not to do because you are in that age or that stage of your life जहाँ पे it's very easy to get carried away and make wrong decisions. So we have Abid with us, and we also have Gaurav with us. So Gaurav is a dear friend. He is an analyst. अगर देखेंगे तो टेक्निकल एनालिस्ट विद Ionic Wealth, but he is way more than that. He has been again an active trader and has some wonderful experiences to share as well. So he is also going to be with us throughout this journey. Okay, so let's get going. Let's start with the first bit. So Abid, just as a starting question and to tell all our viewers, what is personal finance according to you?
यार वो छोड़ो. Let me ask you a reverse question to start with, right? Because that's irrelevant. So for all the people who are watching this, I have some questions before I answer and get into what is personal finance. I mean, dude, come on, every other guy who's trying to sell a credit card on YouTube has answered what is personal finance, right? But let's not go down that path. Uh, See, my first question to all those who are watching, and please make a mental note of this, is how many of you have ever watched a webinar on a Sunday morning at 11 a.m. when you have much better things to do that tells you how to improve your CGPA? I want you to answer this honestly and keep the answer ready, right? This is not. Now, my second question is, how many of you have actually watched a webinar on a Sunday morning after 10th standard, of course, because 10th standard people watching that webinar doesn't count, but after 10th or 12th or college, how many of you have watched a webinar that tells you how to be a better student? Hmm, sorry. My third question is, how many of us who are watching this webinar have watched a webinar, again, Sunday morning 11 or whatever time, on how to increase your focus and how to increase productivity? I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who are watching this session right now who haven't watched all three of this, right? And here we are watching a webinar on a Sunday morning 11 a.m. on personal finance when they are probably between 20 and 25 years old. This tells you everything that is wrong with the world right now. I cannot believe that on a Sunday morning, the three of us are having a webinar to young people between the age of 20 and 25 on personal finance instead of telling them how to increase their CGPA or how to be a better student or how to do something that makes India anywhere in the vicinity of China. But here we are thinking which FD is better, right? So I don't know where to start. So, see, the thing is this, right? Personal finance at some point was very simple to answer your question. Here, how do you manage your finances personally? And the whole objective of personal finance was to live while finances take care of themselves, right? The objective function was to live. Why am I doing personal finance? Because I want to have a good time. I want to lead a good life. Suddenly, the personal finance changed into this horrible, monstrous, shape shifting thing, like a Dementor in Harry Potter, whose primary objective is to suck the focus and happiness out of you. And now people are saying which FD, how to earn extra 0.5% from some small finance bank FD, how to make complicated Excel. People who have never done Black-Scholes model while they are applying for jobs in investment banks for option trading, they have complex Excel sheets downloaded from Reddit that tells you how to super optimize your reward points for travel. Right. So unfortunately, we live in a time when personal finance is having way too much attention, perhaps wrongly, and it should not even have that kind of attention. I think the most important task that personal finance should do is to shift people's personal focus away from personal finance. It should be so simple that you should not even be thinking about it. But here we are instead, where companies are making 50 to 100 crore revenue, teaching personal finance to people. Boss, kya chal raha hai ye? Right? So this is, so my answer to personal finance is it's something which you should know just barely enough so that you don't have to worry about it. And I think that's what we are trying to achieve through this session today.
True, true. Yes. And again, as we say, the COVID batch of investors slash traders slash gamblers
Yeah.
has has all been around since the last few years. Of course, that is what it looks like. But then what all things should people know? What all are the basic parameters that you should have in mind? When should you start? How should you start? To kaise
Yeah,
karna
I'm
chahiye?
going to be very radical here. See, I might be an exception. I got lucky in life or whatever it is. I spent zero time on personal finance till I was 37 or 36, right? This is an extreme case, right? Of course, you should not be on this side either, right? And Gaurav, of course, knows my finances. Gaurav actually has seen my all my investments. He knows exactly where I put every single penny I have in, and he can vouch for this. I never talked to him about where to deploy money till 2 years back, right? Because see, the biggest personal finance tip, which nobody tells you these days, is very simple. Because the most pivotal personal finance tip is not to improve your returns. It is not to invest in equity. It is not to keep that bloody SIP running. It's none of that. The most important personal finance is you have to make a lot of money. You have to make a shitload of money. Right? There's no substitute. There's no personal finance tip that can beat this extremely simple advice, which somehow everybody is magically missing. In fact, my point is personal finance kicks in when you have a lot of personal finance, right? If you have 20,000 rupees, your idea should not be how to grow it at 15% instead of 12%. Your idea should be how do I get my top line to probably 2 crores or 3 crores instead of staying at 20L, right? But somehow nobody is teaching you this, right? If personal finance coaches around the country were actually doing justice right now, they would be running personal finance webinars on how to earn more in your job, how to outperform in your job, how to invest in yourself. See, they basically, again, the biggest lie which is peddled in the last 5 years to our generation is there are these uh, Amazon Jimbro drop shipping side hustling janta who say I have like 5 sources of income and I have like equity, I have FD, I have drop shipping business, I have side mein gym, I have hotel mein partner. Bro, this is a lie, right? There's no such thing. So, or let me put it this way, right? Tell me one guy who created wealth by being good at 5 different things, right? What Mukesh Ambani had like a textile business and some ghar ka rental properties and some side mein he was doing some content creation kiya. No, he just did one thing and one thing alone, and that's how he. Or let me put it this way, right? Nobody pays you for becoming average at many things. You think if there was a person who's among the top 100 drivers in the world and one of the top 1,000 chess players in the world and one of the top 1,000 AOE gamers in the world and one of the top 1,000 footballers in the world, he'll make a dime. He won't make a dime. Lewis Hamilton will get paid a bucket load of $1 million regardless of how much ever he sucks at chess. Nobody cares how good you are at your side hustle, right? Value is unlocked by depth. You have to really, really, really be astonishingly, outstandingly good at one thing. Again, if you're tuning in lately, yes, yes, this is about personal finance. Please sit down. But so we are discussing personal finance. You want to make money, you have to be unbelievably good at one thing, right? And yet we are not talking about that. So my biggest pointer, if you're a student especially, again, I'm going to drop a lot of very bitter truth bombs. If you are a student, be really, really good at what you do, right? If you're a developer, be a nice developer. If you're a quant guy, be a nice quant guy. If you are like a general manager candidate, be a very nice general management candidate and have a ridiculously high CGPA. See, everybody likes to say that CGPA matters and all. It's a bloody lie. Go to any top tier company, regardless of what is that culture they want to project for virtue signaling purpose. The reality is that, see, even now, I'm 40 years old now. Even now, if I see another 40-year-old who says CGPA of 9 in an IIT and a 3.7 plus out of 4.4 or 4.33 in IIM, I would respect that guy. You know why? Because I know, see, he might not be smart, he might not be a genius, he might not be any of that stuff. But here is a man who will do something which is extremely tedious and boring. Why? Because it has to be done. And most of the times, corporate need exactly that, people who will grind regardless of, because it's like marriage, right? You think marriage is like a Shah Rukh Khan movie where you're always pointing at random objects in Switzerland and saying, yo, this is exciting, this is exciting. No, like 80% of the times it is boring, hard work where you're just shopping in the aisles of supermarkets together, or picking a window blind, or thinking of what to do with your children. Career is exactly like that. 70-80% of, like, I run a company, everyone thinks I'm doing an exciting job. My God, I can't tell you how mind-numbingly boring my job is 70% of the times, when I'm just doing people management, or when I'm just filling forms, or I'm just filing registrations to regulators. It's boring. So you need people who will do that kind of stuff because it needs to be done, who are diligent, who are careful, the kind of people who will go through an Excel sheet taking 2-3 hours, despite knowing that it is pointless, because that is the guy you want to depend on when you have to file your annual taxes, right? So you have to be really good at your accounts. You have to have a very high CGPA. This extracurricular, being a jack of all trades, it's overvalued. B- Double down and invest in yourself to a point that you become so good at something that people will pay you through the nose for the depth of expertise you bring, is my single biggest personal fan. In fact, if you watch this, if you're watched till here, you can leave this webinar and go away, because nothing else which I say after this point is going to bring you as much money as this one single tip. It doesn't matter whether Mark Zuckerberg invested in S&P 500 or Russell 2000 or some in Nifty, right? Because he has already created money. It doesn't matter whether that money now grows at 19, 17 or 12. It's still a lot of money. So get that money. It doesn't matter how it grows. This is my single biggest personal finance tip.
Yeah,
I think
very well
I'll
said.
add one
Yeah,
thing here.
Gaurav?
Yeah, I'll add one thing here. So we're talking about investing in yourself, right? People talk about five different stream, X, Y, Z, ek FD le lo, options le lo, blah, 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 and all those stuff. But I think what Abid is saying, ki invest in yourself. So, sir, if you see, Abid would agree to this, that even a great trader in a year will make 30%. If someone who's making 30% in a year is smashing it, smashing the ball out of the park, right? So let's come down to 18%, 20% ka range. Suppose you are in your company and you are doing well, you go to your manager and say, "Ki, sir, I've excelled in my work through, like, I've completed all my tasks and I've done that extra X, I've brought that extra X factor in my work." You will get a raise of 15-20% easily. If you including your variable and whatever you get. So in that, like, rather than chasing that 20-30 extra percent outside and keeping it into options, or trying to gamble, to gamble through investing, equity investing also after a point becomes gambling, because people do not put their thought in what they're investing. They just some random tip on Telegram or X or somewhere, and they'll put their money there. Rather than that, you focus that, give yourself 8 hours, focus on work, get that 20% increment via your salary, right? And you can save all that time. Out of the 24 hours, you can work for 8, 10 hours or 12 hours, whatever your shift is. Rest, give that time to yourself, invest that time in yourself, because giving time to yourself is also very important.
True, true. But again, as in, such is the thing, right? You will always feel that grass is greener on the other side.
But I'll add
And
one pro tip,
yeah,
just one pro
yeah,
tip
with
in sentence.
yes.
You want to improve your personal finance dramatically, take a course in how to negotiate. This is one skill which you'll always find handy. You'll do it in your job interviews, you'll do it in, if you're starting a startup, you'll negotiate with your vendors, you'll negotiate with your buyers, you'll negotiate with your partners, you'll negotiate with your VC, you'll negotiate, see, every single thing in your life, you'll negotiate somewhere for more money. To take a course in negotiation, your personal finance will bump up automatically 10-15%. Nothing else can do this. Anyway,
You can negotiate with your manager.
Yep. Back to you.
True, true. But again, so as a lot of people feel, right? So grass is always greener on the other side. Whatever I am not doing is going to give me more returns. It happens in terms of preparation as well, as many of the viewers will be able to associate with. We are always looking for that one magic pill. And जैसे ही वो magic pill मिल जाता है, you start looking for another magic pill because that suddenly seems to not work for you.
We are still
So
talking
even in
about
this,
personal finance, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You said magic pill and stuff. Okay.
yeah. No, so same thing. So even in terms of personal finance, people are always looking for that one thing that will kind of turn around their entire journey and everything. Yeah. So sorry. All right. So people are always looking for that kind of a magic thing that they have. But as Abid, Gaurav have rightly said, you have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on your core job that you have, your core set of skills that you believe you will be able to do, sustain for maybe what, 25, 30, 35 years of your career. And that is basically what is going to generate wealth for you. Everything that you see online, let's say people claiming that they double their money every month. Yeah, I don't know,
Every
20%
week.
every day. Yeah, that's what. So अगर 20% every day निकाल लेते तो मतलब in a year or whatever, in a matter of months, you would have been the richest person in the world, right? So that is one thing that we have. And also, Abid, I read one of your recent tweets. What would have happened had someone invested some money somewhere instead of getting into IIM Ahmedabad, or if IITs and IIMs were not there?
Yeah,
But these things are of course theoretical, तो ये सब तो नहीं होते. So talking about instruments, Abid, what do you think? What should people look at? मतलब the conventional FDs and gold, let's say, or you should get into mutual funds, SIPs, active trading. What is it that people should do?
depends on your age. See, the thing is this, right? Again, if you're 20 to 25, yaar, mat karo yaar. See, the thing is this, right? Okay, I saved nothing till the age of, I don't know, embarrassingly old age, right? But my point is this. See, 90% of people make 90% of their wealth after they turn 30. So your majority income is going to be unleashed when you're 30. If you're 24, 25, 26, etc., if you try to see, like I used to live in Bombay, right? I started my career in Bombay, and Bombay is the best example of now almost all Indian cities are becoming like that. But of course, Bombay would have been the benchmark city for that. Bombay is the benchmark city for having a miserable life, right? And let me put it this way. See, the thing is, I come from Kerala. There are houses on the ground with three, four rooms. Like when you say car park, you mean like two cars. You don't mean one park, right? Because land is cheap. There's also like a couple of coconut trees are a given. You don't even ask, are there coconut trees in the yard? They are there, right? This is how we grew up, right? And and then I went to Bombay. And then it's like, in Munna Bhai, there's that line, right? Arey circuit, ye room to shuru hote hi khatam ho gaya types. Right? This is what most of my experiences in Bombay are. And I think I used to, in Shivdi in 2011, you had to pay 25-30K for like a 700 square feet apartment, which is on the fourth floor without a lift, right? So in 2011. So imagine the horror of it. So, and there were people who were trying to increase their savings by living far away from the office and living in smaller apartments and living in I know people who were on Tinder, and then somebody will get a match and then they'll ask, "Ki, boss, where do you live?" They're like, "We are, oh, sorry, unmatched." There's no point, right, in living like that. So if you're young, I think the first important priority is to have a good life. You should be in a good place, have a decent house, be close enough to your friends, etc. If you're trying to penny pinch everything you have and try to put that money into an SIP, boss, you haven't lived, right? At the age of 50, are you going to have fond memories of your bank account? No, right? So, to answer your question, if I'm very young, where do I want to invest in? Nowhere, right? In fact, I have some extra money. I'll rather try to learn something using that extra money, which will tremendously improve my quality of life. If I have 25K instead of investing in an SIP, I'll rather go join a gym, right? Because see, you should have an emergency fund, you should have an insurance. But if you're really, really young, trying to open a portfolio is borderline stupid because the marginal utility of money, or see, a 1,000 rupee SIP is not going to change your life much, right? But a 12,000 rupee gym membership in the same year can tremendously change your life. I'd rather put that 12,000 rupee in a gym membership than do 1,000 rupee SIP every month. I will take your question seriously only after I've had enough money, which is surplus money, which I have no idea what to do about.
Hmm.
At that point, of course, see, again, regardless of age, you need to have an insurance. If you're 25, you don't have an insurance, it's stupid. Right? If you're 24, you don't have an insurance, it's stupid. So have insurance, have like 3 to 6 months of emergency fund parked in an FD or a liquid mutual fund. But otherwise, try to spend it on things that truly unlock value in your life and make it better. Pay a little bit more rent, live in a nicer house.
Hmm.
So, but to answer your question, once you have surplus money, my focus first will be if I have any needs coming, I'll put that in a liquid mutual fund or FD or debt fund or something. If I have surplus money, I have nothing to do about, then the younger I am, the riskier things I will invest in.
Hmm.
For example, if I am 26, 27, then I'll just invest everything I have in small cap, mid cap SIP. If I am 35, I'll probably have more of less risky instruments like large cap, etc., mixed thrown into the mix. If I am 50, I'll have maybe 50% FD, 50% equity. If I am 70, if it's for myself, obviously I'll have all debt and very little equity. Again, if I'm 70, if I'm doing it for my children, of course, I'll have much more equity. But to answer your question, the younger you are, the more risk you should take when it comes to investing money. But the bigger point is only invest money you have no use of. If you have any meaningful use of that, use it for that when you're young.
One more
Yeah,
thing, don't get into this debt trap stuff, because 25 to 30 is the age where you get all those gyan from people that you can borrow something for an X amount, X percentage, and you can invest and you can make some X percentage. Spread is yours, rest goes back. That is never the case, because so I'm just saying this from my batchmates, few batchmates experience, that post MBA, like people who are listening to us are obviously getting into MBA, or obviously are in their first year, second year, or have just passed out. So one thing that you guys should avoid is taking personal loan or spending heavily via your credit card, because I have seen my batchmates taking a personal loan, sir, and putting it into options, losing everything, then borrowing money from friends and saying that you give me X number, I'll make 2x, 3x, and I'll give you something, and then they ended up losing that money as well. So what happens? A, you have borrowed, you have lost money. You have like from the bank, or at some extra percentage. Plus, you borrow it from people. Obviously, they won't charge you any extra percentage on that, but you have to return it to them. Two things happens. You start early and you are losing the plot, because now you are in stress. Your stress, your complete focus in life becomes, I have to reduce my debt and get back and give it back to them. So you don't focus on your work. Your entire thing rotates or revolves around that stuff. You start losing focus on your job. You tend to underperform in your job. And once that impression is created that you are an underperformer, no matter what you do, appraisal खराब ही होने वाला है. And if your appraisal goes for a toss, that spiral happens. Then that is why we are seeing a lot of people switching their job in 1 year, 2 year. And they can be a different thing that they wanted to do, pursue something, and they're switching. That's a different story. But I've seen like maximum times that I've seen from my batchmates is that यार manager से ठीक नहीं हो रहा है, growth नहीं मिल रहा है. So they can be an outlier कि यार मैनेजर खराब है, उसको ग्रोथ देना ही नहीं है आपको, वो हो सकता है. बट में ज्यादा करके आपको ग्रोथ इसलिए नहीं मिल रहा है. यू डोंट गेट ग्रोथ बिकॉज यू आर नॉट परफॉर्मिंग. यू आर डिस्ट्रैक्टेड एट वर्क. यू आर लुकिंग एट मार्केट्स फ्रॉम 9:30 to 3:30. एंड पोस्ट दैट एक बार 9:30 to 3:30 हो गया तो किसका काम करने का मन करता नहीं है. मतलब वेरी रेयर चांस दैट यू वुड वांट टू वर्क आफ्टर दैट. एंड सपोज यू हैव अ बैड डे बिटवीन दैट टाइम ऑफ 9:30 to 3:30, then you won't work, and this spiral goes on, and you end up ruining your initial year, which is very crucial, because that's where the learning curve is very steep. After 2 years, 3 years, if you don't know a certain important stuff, then people will not take you seriously, and that's how you lose the plot.
If you are always thinking about market and trading and all, see, in Indian corporates, I've learned one thing, right? Like, I have been very lucky because I didn't get it, but I know a lot of friends of mine who have like knives on their back, which they still are carrying around from their few years in corporate. The thing is, when you're everybody is trying to find a reason to pull the other person down,
Hmm.
and scarcity mentality, obviously. And if you are into trading, personal finance, etc., there will be one idiot in your office who will go to your boss and say, "अरे वो trade वेड करने वाला बंदा है, उसको job पे focus." This will devastate your career more than anything else. So even if you're trading, please don't first of all, don't trade. But if you're like hopelessly addicted or something, get rehab. But if you still haven't checked into rehab, please don't let anybody know that you're trading, right? I'll be honest. I have been like, when you sometimes are like the plus one friend who goes along when your friend meets the father-in-law, right? So I've been that plus one friend to other friend of mine, and he was a trader, professional trader. And I've seen the look of disappointment in his father-in-law's eyes when he's told him what he does. So nobody is happy to know that you're trading except your worst enemies. So So don't focus on all that. Focus on your job. Like Gaurav said, stress is not worth it.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing. So I have a friend. So in many MNCs, if you have to put in a trade, you have to take permission from your boss, right? Without their permission, you cannot put in a trade, and there is a freeze period of 30 days or a 90-day, depending on which firm do you work. So
Hmm.
one of my friend made 40-50 L in this bull market, and because his salary is north of 40 L, so he had saved for a while, so he had a lot of money. तो उसने ऐसे ही रैंडम एक शॉट लिया 2023 में और डाल दिया पैसा मतलब रैंडम एंड 2023 had the best bull run that we saw. He doubled his money basically. Now he's sitting at 1 CR of मतलब he has a 1 CR number with him. उसका बॉस आके बोलता है यार तुम्हारा तो फोकस ही नहीं है काम पे. He's like तुम तो पैसे वहां पे बना रहे हो and this guy is not doing anything. उसने पैसे लगा के डाल दिए but his boss knows कि इसने इन्वेस्ट किया और वो पैसा डबल हो गया है. तो even this creates a bad impression कि even if you're working but someone comes to know that you're making money via market, you will have a bad appraisal for sure.
Yeah. So again, yes, perception, of course, is there.
Perception is
Your workplace is, of course, a perception management. Even your institute has a lot of perception management that is there. So सब जगह पे मतलब you have to sort of think about PR जो आजकल हम लोग बोलते हैं. That is basically what to think about every step in your journey. मतलब B school interview से लेके inside a B school. So I remember I was a part of the placecom at FMS and it used to be a democratic process. मतलब लोग आके vote करेंगे. So people will vote for you only if they perceive you to be a good individual, responsible individual. तो ही शायद तुमको टीम में select करेंगे. That kind of a thing.
बड़े
So
लोग
it
प्लेसकॉम
starts from there,
एफएमएस.
right? Yeah, it starts from there, right? And फिर jobs में भी same ही चीज continue करता है और appraisals are linked to your the way in which people perceive you at the workplace. You might not be doing anything, but you sit in front of your laptop and don't move around. People think that you are doing a very good job, right? Compared to someone who is always jumping around here and there. तो वो सारी चीजें होती हैं. Same principles apply to your personal finance as well. As Abid said, मतलब it is incredibly boring. It has to be boring. अगर वो excitement के लिए कर रहे हो ना, it becomes your slot machine kind of a thing.
आई थिंक
तो
पीपल
वो
विल
नहीं
लीव
करना
दिस वेबिनार कि क्या पका रहे तीनों लोग यहाँ पे बैठ के
चाहिए.
पर्सनल फाइनेंस सीखने आए थे. इन्फ्लेशन हेज, X% इन एफडी, X% इन गोल्ड, X%, ये तो कुछ बता नहीं रहे ये लोग क्या बकवास कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे. दिस विल हैपन आई थिंक.
नहीं, that will of course happen. वो अलग story है. But
Abid will
this
say
is
ना
what it
कि
looks like.
portfolio hedge के लिए should buy this put, you should buy this small cap long and to hedge it out. Abid, any sort of tip that will help make me a millionaire or something by doing this?
I thought you are already there, but okay.
ये गरीबों का मजाक ऐसे अमीर लोग ऐसे ही उड़ाते हैं. Okay, sir, I think there are some
Yes.
questions in the box. I think people are asking. अभी थोड़ा boring questions आ रहे हैं. तो there is someone who is asking कि how much money should I park in FDI for emergency fund? I think that's a good question. So I thought I'll just
Yeah, it's a
pick it
very
up from
good
there.
question. Six
Yeah.
months of expenses. See, it depends. See, 6 months of expenses is the thumb rule, right? But see, the thing is, it's also about contingency. Do you see, it's an exercise in risk management. Do you see any unforeseen expense suddenly spiking? So if you have really, really good insurance, then probably 6 months fund is enough. You don't need anything more. If you don't have great insurance, then probably 6 month fund might not be enough. But the general consensus is keep 6 month FD. Sorry, 6 month in an F. I wouldn't do FD, and I'll tell you why. So there are two angles to this again. One is when you break an FD, you lose 1% of the interest. So for example, if you put a 1 year FD and 1 year FD is at 7%, and if you break it at 6 months, there are two ways in which it damages you. One is when the FD period is 6 months, the interest rate applied is not the 1 year interest rate. It is what is applied is a 6 month interest rate. So instead of 7%, you might only get 5.5%. And on top of that, there's a penal interest cost of 1%. And that's a scam, right? They should just give you like whatever is the 5.5% and finish it there. No, but they'll take 1% extra. So you'll only get 4.5%. The FD is a little tricky in that sense, right? So basically, where to park this 6 month thing? I'll put some money in my savings, which is always available to me in an ATM, right? I'll put maybe a majority of it is in a liquid mutual fund, because liquid mutual fund I can get next day, right? Basically, if I put a sell order today, I can get it in bank tomorrow morning, right? So liquid mutual fund also does not have any penal interest in the sense, and typically it gives you a slightly higher interest than FD or arbitrage fund. One of these, like there are two things: liquid mutual fund and arbitrage fund. You can put in either of this. I don't understand arbitrage funds well, so I don't put money a lot in that. But I stick to liquid mutual funds. Uh, So 6 month ka thing, probably majority in liquid mutual fund, at some part in FD, maybe 80-20 or something. And the reason why I'm saying FD is, see, at the end of the day, let's say you immediately need money right now. That you can't get in liquid mutual fund, you can only get the next day. And if you have an emergency on Friday, I don't know what kind of emergency you'll have on a Friday night, but let's say you have an emergency on a Friday. You can get the money only on Monday if you park it in liquid mutual fund, because market has to be open. So FD, if it's a really, really bad situation, you can break on a Friday night, pay that 1%, but still you'll be able to pull it out from the ATM within the next 1 minute, right? So put maybe 2 month expenses in an FD, 4 month expenses in a liquid mutual fund, and some part in your savings. That's how I'll park my money I need, like emergency fund.
Yes.
Perfect. ठीक. Understood. And
I
in terms
have one
of,
question too, Abid,
yeah,
here.
Gaurav, yes.
Should I opt for a credit card at the age of in my 20s? Because I never did that, but my dad was stuck in a debt trap. I have this personal experience. My dad never got out of the debt trap because of a credit card. And you know, the interest of credit card can go north of 35-40% that. And I never did that until now, because I know I can pay my bills on time and all those stuff. But my friends in early 20s used to have 6, 7, 8 credit card, because either ये offer है, इधर वो उधर वो कैशबैक मिल रहा है, यहाँ पे कुछ उससे ये मिल रहा है. Should one opt for, because credit card is something that everyone in their mid 20s are using these days.
Credit card is a necessary evil. I'll tell you why. Because there are some things you can't do without a credit card. You want to make a foreign payment, you need a credit card. You want to book flight tickets on certain airlines. Like I can't probably see. First question is, unless technically, so I'm going to do a contrarian opinion purely from a utilitarian point of view. Technically, you never need a credit card. In a perfect world, you can always do everything with a debit card. The sad part is there are some interoperability issues for debit cards. For example, like if you are planning to book a flight in from Iceland to France in Icelandian currency in some local airline in Iceland, maybe your debit card might not work. There are corner cases like that, but minus these corner cases, it always works. Then there is the obvious benefit of credit card. Sometimes you get cashback offers right away on the credit card, etc. Right? So you should keep a credit card, because so for example, when I think recently when we bought an iPhone, if you had a particular brand credit card, you got a 10K immediately cashback, right?
Mm.
So I mean that's hard to, it's borderline stupid to not use that. And of course, forget India's airport lounges because that is a ripoff. Because dude, come on, Indian airport lounges are terrible. But outside, when you have a priority pass, you get access to nice lounges, right? So there are benefits like that. But the catch is this, right? I think I've already paid more money to credit card accidentally than what I would say was my benefit from my credit card, for two reasons. See, if you're a decent spender and if you have 2-3 L spending every month, right? Hypothetically, right? Uh, it takes one missed payment for you to get a finance charge on that amount, right? And if you have a 3L outstanding, your finance charge is how much is it? 3%, right?
Yeah.
That's like 10K almost. You miss one payment date accidentally, and I'm telling you where it comes from. I recently had that experience. So what had happened is I had an Amex card, and it was my first month of getting Amex card, right? Like that new card I got only in January, and in February I was in New Zealand, and obviously I didn't know how this thing worked and all. My other card, SBI card, they sent me a notification 2 days before payment saying, "Boss, this is the outstanding." And I hadn't really gotten used to the Amex card, so I didn't know that they had a you had to opt in for the reminder service, and the amount that they show on the main app is not what you have to pay.
Mm.
Basically, SBI always shows me the remaining amount you have to pay. Amex doesn't show the amount if you have already paid the minimum amount, right?
Mm.
So somewhere in January, I had made some extra payments.
Mm.
So the minimum amount required went away. And outstanding balance is not displayed in card. And unless you make an explicit opt-in, they don't send you a reminder in the app or SMS or anything. So I didn't know any of that. And I opened my card somewhere before my payment due date last month, and it showed nothing outstanding. There was outstanding, they just meant there's no minimum outstanding. So I got like a 12K ka a finance charge, which I saw only after coming back here, because obviously nobody checks things on vacation or talks to an AMX person. Of course, I called them and I explained to them. They waived it off on the spot, half of it. But the point is, see, one mistake once in a credit card is almost going to take away your entire, savings from that credit card. It just takes one mistake, right? Because the catch obviously, and also if you do not make the minimum pay amount, you also have a CIBIL, right?
Right.
Impact of that. So credit card, yes, if you're really, really careful and if you know for a fact you'll never make a mistake. And see, this happened to my wife also. Like basically, for some reason, accidentally, her bank changed her auto debit setting from minimum full amount to minimum amount, and we didn't know.
Oh.
And of course, they refunded the entire amount because they knew it was their mistake. But the catch is, I went through her credit card statements and found this was happening. So uh, she had a finance charge of north of 50K. Then we called up the bank and asked, "Ki boss, ye kya chal raha hai?" Bank acknowledged the mistake and reversed the charge, right? But if we hadn't found that, we lost 50K, right? So, and so many people think that I'll put it on auto debit every month and then forget about it. But boss, sometimes things happen. If or something like this, right? If your payment date is 3rd of every month and accidentally on that particular date you had less balance, they'll make an attempt and then they'll not try again. The next thing you know, you have a credit card. Even if you, finance charge. Even if you have balance on the very next day, it doesn't matter. Even if you're short by 1 rupee, they won't debit the remainder. They'll actually not debit and put you the full finance charge. Let's say your credit card bill was 3 lakh. You had 2,99,000. They'll attempt fail and then charge you for 3 lakh instead of charging you for extra 1,000. So it's like there was a very famous American finance guy. He used to say, if you play with snakes, you'll get bitten. I look at credit cards similarly. If you have it, have a really, really nice one. Optimize the usage of it, but please be aware that things can happen. And you have to walk in knowing this. The one way to minimize that problem is you can reduce the spending on the credit card. This entire reward point chasing is stupid here, because I don't think it's worth the time or effort or the bandwidth. So I'll still try to do majority of my spending through UPI or something. And there's one more reason, one last point here. See, I never pay a small business using an Amex. I don't want to take 3% of their top line and pass it to an American corporation. I'd rather want that money to stay in this country to a small business owners, this thing. So every time I go to a restaurant or a small business or anything in India, pay using UPI, the entire money goes to them. Please don't use an American card. 3% of the money, they don't deserve it. So, yeah.
No American Express was hurt in this video.
Or Visa or Master, it doesn't matter, right? Why are they 4.5%? Yeah, only because they have a monopoly, right? That's just unfair.
Yeah. I think I'll just add one thing here, that ECS wala part. You are also charged along with your finance cost, your ECS cost. And I'll say this sad story because I've seen my dad going through that stress, and obviously he did not have money, but he wanted to do means, like he wanted to do something for the family, so ended up swiping credit card everywhere. He only made minimum payment every time.
Oh.
So it took him 10 years to come out of that cycle. So anyone who's in their mid 20s right now, don't make this mistake, because one mistake can go can go for years and years and years. And I have seen that personally in my family, and that stress is that has a very different toll on your health. So as Abid said, invest in your health. So if you end up spending like carelessly using credit card or some other means, you will hamper your health, and everything around you will go for a toss. So credit card, I took up this topic because I've seen that in my family. So I would say, please, one thing that you guys can avoid is credit card in your mid 20s. Avoid it forever until unless you have a lot of money to do international transactions. If you're not making international transactions, I think you can avoid it. Yes, there will be people who want to do GRE GMAT or some payments for GRE GMAT. You can borrow the credit card from someone who has that. You can pay the money via UPI to them, because the fees is not more than 20K for GRE GMAT either.
Also, one obvious stated point which we missed. When you spend using credit card, the money doesn't feel real. When you spend from your bank account, you see the bank account balance. See, credit card is like an infinite pit, right? You can, so it's like this, right? In Japan, they give you food in small plates so that the
Right.
container size kind of restricts you from overeating. If you're actually spending using the cash in hand and using your bank account, if you have a relatively smaller bank account, you'll see ki boss itna hi hai, let me not take too much from it, right? But if you have a credit card, it's like an infinite supply of money. It doesn't feel real. It's all moh maya. So people overspend because it's not real money. So one very important thing which we've missed mentioning is if you're using real money, cash or bank, you also reduce your spending and avoid a lot of unnecessary expenses because it feels real. If you have to spend 5 lakh on credit card, kya hai? You get the meta, right? 5 lakh, if somebody asks you, see, if you have to buy like a 2 lakh TV on a credit card, you might pay it. Try giving 2 lakh to a person in cash. Yaar, wo dukta hai yaar. So, yeah, for that
I
reason.
have a very simple principle here. Matlab, if I have the money to buy something, then I will buy it using a credit card, so that I can offset that thing and get those points that are there. But you have to be incredibly disciplined. एक भी मतलब कुछ हो गया सिबिल स्कोर यहाँ पे technically you might not realize it at this point in time, but it might have repercussions on the interest rates that you
When
might
you actually want
need to
money,
pay.
you
Yeah,
will
when you
not get
actually need
because
money,
of your
it's a
civil.
problem.
Also, you need a credit card to improve your CIBIL score is a
That
very
is. Huh.
scammy, you know,
Those
if
are those people who are actually teamed up with, or they have some agenda of peddling some the bank's credit card or
that is
something like that.
absolute nonsense. See, ideally, you should not have a credit CIBIL score. If you never needed a CIBIL score in your life, you are very lucky because you never picked up a loan, even a housing loan for that reason. Because we have done extensive webinars proving that housing loan also is not really worth it. But the point is, the best case eventuality for you is that you never end up taking a loan. But otherwise, also, you need a credit history through credit card to get a housing loan and all is BSCR. That is just something which banks conveniently peddle so that they end up getting you addicted to this system that they have created.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And talking about loans, I think there are a lot of students
Yeah.
here who will be taking student loans. How do they manage that? As in, do they pay it off as soon as possible, or they avail tax benefits and try to push the deadline? So how exactly to manage that
Sir,
in
I
India?
paid my student loan last year, so but I think Abid would be the one who, because this part of student loan is very close to his heart, so I think Abid should take this.
Um, okay, honest question. What else would you do with that money?
With that money, oh
Question is this, right? You have a student loan, which is probably at a, see, that's the irony of India, right? You have students' loans, which are more expensive than housing loans. A
yes.
car loan is, cheaper than, matlab, where is our priority? So my basic question becomes, ki boss, are we, so if you are a student and you have an EMI of 1 second, I'll just sit down. I was walking around. So,
So just a heads up, Abid has a very bad backache, so he's walking
Yeah.
because of that.
I,
And thank you
I
so much,
think,
Abid, for making it on
no,
this.
that's fine. So I think I did too much of, outdoorsy stuff, forgetting my age last time. Last month I was on vacation. So probably.
Yeah,
So here's the thing, right? If you're watching this, ideally, your age in years should be less than the number of kilometers that you're doing in an outdoor activity. Please keep this thumb rule. So if your age is more than the kilometers you're doing it, sorry, if the kilometers is more than the age you're at, then it probably won't end well. So
yeah.
so so see, I had an education loan. The EMI was roughly 17K or something per month. The question is, I can pay that thing or I can use that money to invest in something. Now, the catch is, uh, if you have a 10% plus loan, right, or 11%, 12%, whatever is the number, which investment do you know that gives you more than that, right? Because a 10, 11% educational loan gives you tax saving. So effectively, you are actually not, your effective saving is much more than that 10, 11%, right? Whereas, let's say you put money in a Nifty mutual fund or something. And let's assume that in the time that you invested, it gave linear, straight 14% every year kind of return, right? So if you make 15% return in a Nifty mutual fund every year, but at the end of it, you have to pay 12.5% capital gain tax. Your effective return is only 13%, right? After tax. If your educational loan is close to 10-11% with the tax saving, it's actually better to pay your loan than to invest in Nifty. See, and the other thing is with loans and all, if you don't pay EMI, there are penal interests, right? And by the way, loan affects your CIBIL score, by the way, educational loan. I know this because 2 years into my educational loan, I started Sensible One and I defaulted on my loans, and they sent court notice to my mother, not to mention the stress of all that. While Vijay Mallya took SBI loan the same year, but you know, in fact, the funny part is I was working in one of the private sector banks, and that loan application even came to us. We were looking at Kingfisher ka financial at that year, and it's funny, but and I'm like, "Ki boss, और मेरा loan इनको problem लग रहा है." So, but yeah, you'll have NPA, you'll have penal interest, you'll have interest on interest. In fact, fun fact, although my loan was it probably started at around 8.25% or something in 2007. By the time I paid it back, the effective interest rate was running north of 14% with the penal charges, everything. There's nothing on earth that can give you a 14% return after tax, realistically, right? Of course, Telegram mein there are people who give you that kind of return, but realistically, there's nothing. So yes, if you are very young and if you have a loan, please pay off that loan first, for the simple reason that it gives you freedom to do anything after that. If you have a loan, you don't have freedom. And definitely don't invest something instead of paying the loan. Paying the loan has to happen first. Pay back your loans, especially the high interest loans, before you invest even a single penny, for sure. So yeah, if you're a student and if you're an education loan, get out of it as soon as you can.
So I'll just put one caveat what Abid was saying. My education loan was 13.55%. I took it from a private bank because I had no time, and I had a car loan which I still have, but it's a very tiny amount now. It is 8.75%. So 13.55 and 8.75. That is the statistic I can give from my score.
Yeah, you were a chump to take a 13% bank loan, Gaurav.
I did not know anything then. I know. And yeah, so banks do scam you. So if you are getting into your MBA school right now, one thing I can say, please look at PSU banks because they actually charge you less than the private sector banks.
And they
So
also bother less with collecting the
yes.
money back.
Yes. So people who are here, so please do it late मत करना. I was very lazy. I was like कि यार college का पैसा भरने को तो इतना time है, लोन ले लेंगे 2 दिन में हो जाता है. But that doesn't happen. They take at least one week for that, and they are also smart. उनको पता है इसको ये दिन पे भरना है, तो let's delay the process because he will be desperate to take the loan then. So that's what happened with me. And that bank is Axis Bank. I don't mind taking name of that bank. So Axis Bank charged me 13.55%.
All right, chalo. Thankfully, I didn't have to go through all of this. I went to the ATM, withdrew 10,000 rupees, paid it as my fees, and that was the end of it.
FMS Delhi for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. So that was what it looks like. There is one question that we have on the chat. The gist of the question is basically how do you invest and beat inflation? That is the gist of it. So any percentage that we haven't mentioned, right? So how much should you spend? And we have all these kind of calculators that are available, starting from what the richest man in Babylon. A lot of people read that book and start from there. And वहाँ पे कुछ 30% you save, 20% you spend, 50% is your necessity, and all those things have been given. So any percentage that you would like to maybe recommend कि हाँ मतलब after चलो you have spent your money that you needed to spend, how exactly do you allocate the rest of it?
See, I'll tell you what. Wrong question from this audience. See, I have done this webinar on personal finance for different kind of audiences. I've done it for doctors. And one of the toughest webinar I had to do was for the Kerala Police Force, right? Like my one of my classmates is the chief of police there, and they had invited me to do this thing. Now the problem is with police, and Kerala generally tends to be honest officers. Really, like if you offer a bribe in Kerala, if you're caught in something or signal or something, they'll actually be genuinely offended. So they were people who were living on a fixed income with a linear growth rate without any side hustles happening, right? If the same question is asked in that audience, it's really impossible to answer because you can't beat inflation. This is the reality of it. Because if, see, an emerging market like India, unfortunately, is a victim of a system where a reserve currency country like America prints money, exports. America exports their inflation everywhere across the world and makes us work as their cheap labor. This is the reality of it. You can spin it in any way you want, but at the end of the day, we are cheap labor in a depreciating currency for Western countries. And we are happily taking the hit. Why? Because our exporters want to export more. So, in that context, I would say if you had put me in a webinar of government employees and asked how to beat inflation, I would have said ki bhaiya bahut mushkil hai. Because then you have to invest everything into equity, hoping that equity beats inflation, right? You can't have even like 30% FD allocation because it drags it down.
Correct.
But here's the catch. People who are attending this webinar should not be asking themselves this question. Your answer to how to beat the inflation is create a lot more money from your work, right? You are not people. This is an MBA group, right? You're not people who are going to have linear growth of income, right? If you're resigning yourself to a linear growth of income, boss, you have already lost the battle, right? In fact, your inflation beating does not come from the spread between your equity returns and inflation. It
Right.
comes from the exponential growth of your salary or your business income. So you can beat it only using that. Regardless, see, I can take the easier answer and say, ki boss, nahi, equity, ek mutual fund mix has small cap, mid cap. It will perform at 17%. Inflation will perform only at 7%. That is nonsensical. And I'll tell you why. Inflation is not at 8%. Nowhere in the world is inflation at 8%. Every government in the world is lying to us, right? Because they can't tell the real number. Governments across the world, US famously is underreporting their numbers. They are changing their inflation basket. There are, see, the thing is, if you really think inflation it is 6%, then boss, you need to touch the grass or something, right? My apartment rent has jumped up nearly 100% in the last 2-3 years, right?
Hmm.
And I know everywhere in this apartment, right? If you look at how much money it takes to send your children to school, inflation is not. See, inflation in the price of rice might be 6%. Inflation in pulses might be 7%. Petrol price might have gone up 3-4%. Boss, that is not inflation. The real inflation is the stuff that really is a big ticket item. Bill of hospitalization. See, I remember when my niece was born, the entire hospital bill was probably around 50K, right? But recently, when there was a birth in my extended family, I think the bill was much more, which is not a 6% growth, right? So your children's education, the price of your car, the price of your apartment, the rent of your apartment, the cost of eating out, the cost of taking a vacation, etc. Those are the big ticket spends in your life every year, right? Not your, yeah, come on, your food is not the biggest. If you are a middle class person in this particular webinar, right, your big ticket items are not really about food, etc. It's not the commodity price inflation or WPI you should be looking at. It's about house, about rent, all of those things. And that is not at 6%, 7%. It is at much number. We are living in an asset price inflation time. Truth is, if you are thinking that you will invest in mutual funds mixture and beat inflation, boss, you're high. You can't do that. You might just be barely able to manage 2-3%, but the asset prices will inflate much more. If you're
Right.
living in the center of a city, the housing price there will escalate way more than you get the meta, right? Your car service, all of those things add up, right? Your children's education, all of those add up. So if you want to beat inflation again, focus on exponential growth of your salary, and not.
That's true because I know a few people like they're paying rents. Every year your rent goes up by 10%.
Yep.
Like forget everything, your rent goes up by 10%. Bread, Wibs bread, I remember 7 rupees is what 7 to 10 rupees is what we used to buy. Now I don't remember the price, but I think it is north of 30, 35
Yeah,
for sure.
40 kind of a thing.
40 के आसपास है. So it is what? It is
That's maybe
4x in 5 years. It has just gone 4x in 5 years. Also, like there's one famous stick that people get at every corner of the road. It used to cost 6 rupees when we were in engineering. Now it is costing 18 rupees because so it has also gone 3x in 10 years. So inflation, what Abid said is right, that 6%, 8% and inflation is just to make you feel that ki, हाँ, सब ठीक है, but in general it is not. Cost of flight, best example. 2021, when I used to fly from Mumbai to Delhi, I used to pay 6 or 7K return. Now it is 15K, 18K, or almost 20K return. So that has also gone 3x in 4 years. So inflation was बोलने की बात है, and you will not be able to beat it with inflation like by doing multi-asset, multi-cap, multi whatever it is, or doing options because वो possible है नहीं. Abid, I have one question because I've also passed out recently.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, can you make a fortune trading options? The best.
No. Realistically, no. Very, very simple reason, right? Because see, if you have a large corpus, then yes, you can make a fortune. But then you already have a large corpus, you're sitting on a fortune, right? Or yeah, very simple, right? I am see this. I'm going to share it, despite the fact that I've shared it everywhere, because this is that one thing I did, which got most of the people to wake up. And the funny thing is simple. I'd put one example saying कि boss कितने पैसे हैं तुम्हारे पास? People will say 10 लाख. ठीक है, 10 लाख से option trade करोगे हाँ. Let's say you make 50% every year using that 10 lakh, right? 50% is
You
phenomenal.
want to show it doing your Excel sheet?
No, this is simple math. People will understand, right? So, uh, or we can do the Excel sheet also. 1 second. I'll just try to sheets.new. I'll just put my screen share. Not this. What are we seeing? You're seeing an Excel sheet, is it?
Spreadsheet, yes.
Google Sheet. Yeah.
Good. And can you see hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's say somebody has 10 lakh, right? And you're making, most people make, let's be,
What was your benchmark when you were trading for a
we have a
corporate?
requirement of at least 30%, right? Now, so let's do pre-tax. I'm just gonna increase my, right? So, oh, what is this? Oh, sorry.
No, it got squared. Huh?
Right? This is pre-tax. And post-tax, most people don't understand this. This is treated as business income. So it's taxed at 30%. So बचे कितने into 0.7, right? And let's see monthly how much it yields. Yeah, so even if you are like some stud boy trader, right? You will make 1 second. This is, yeah. Even if you're like some phenomenal stud boy trader, you'll make like 17,000 rupees every month extra year. And let me put it in perspective. You'll make 17,000 rupees every month extra by doing something which is super stressful, which is one of the most difficult places in the world to make money. And everyone thinks trading is 9:30 to 3:30. That's like the biggest lie of all times. Tell this to people who look at Singapore Nifty trading at midnight asking, "Arey, kal gap down hoga kya, boss?" This 9 to 3:30 trading is like the massive, massive mega lie. You'll be like, boss, I know people whose marriages are shaky because these guys are like looking at US markets and all at 10 o'clock thinking kal kya hoga hamara. So this is like nonsense. How do I get the screen share off? 1 second. So basically you will end up making very extremely difficult money which is inconsequential money. One second, I need to turn this screen share off. Or is it off already? No, right?
No.
I
Can
think
I try from
Shashank
my side?
can do that, right? I don't do this thing often here. I'm
Okay, I did it. I did it.
okay, awesome. I hardly use Zoom. So basically, the problem is you are chasing some extremely difficult money to make. Uh, and even if you are like an unbelievable trader at 30%, you are making just 20K extra. Yeah, 20K extra if you want per month, it's like 2.5 lakh extra a year, right? If you are somebody making 20, 25 LPA, that's like a 10% extra from your boss. And the thing is this, right? See, most people don't realize it, but we live in an extraordinarily good time for people who are hardworking and focused. Because, see, I've noticed this, right? I've been in enough corporates in India where nobody is hardworking. That's the truth of it. Corporates where people just go there, take 5 sutta breaks, take 2 hour long lunch breaks, have a lot of chit chat, office politics, gossip, etc., and then come back. I've not found. See, if you're a focused person who's hardworking inside any regular corporate in India, chances are that you're the top 1%. Everybody in the world is distracted from trading and investing and what is happening in the media and the circus which is happening in the world, the social media. People are dopamine hit zombies. So if you are a person who has some control over that person's focus, you will outperform everybody. There has never been a better time for somebody who focuses on work, right? So yeah, I mean, what is this 30% option trading independence and all? You see, if you should do this option trading business only if you're planning to become a full-time option trader. But for that, you need a lot of capital. You can't do it with like das lakh, right? But then again, why? If you have a lot of capital, use that and chill. No, why do you want to do all this? So can you make money using options? Can you get rich using options? No. Is it fun? Yes, because I have learned a lot of good things from it. So for fun, I would highly recommend it. For financial independence, absolutely no.
True, true.
It just so a few Telegram tipsters were hurt in this state by this state. I think, sir, you have some rapid questions to ask to
Yes,
Abid.
yes, yes.
Quick
So we'll
fire,
do the
some
मेरे पास कुछ ऐसे rapid fire questions हैं
HFT questions are like in.
KWK style. ठीक है
So your voice
चलो.
is a bit feeble, I think. Ko.
My voice is a bit
Yeah,
feeble. Okay, let me just see.
But everybody who's attending this webinar is between 20 and 25, right?
maximum.
Yes,
Then
yes.
boss chhod do. We'll do another webinar for you 3 years later when we'll teach you actually where to deploy your fund and all.
Right now, you should not do the mistakes that we have done in life.
I don't focus
That's
on.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That is basically what it looked like, right? And considering, see, मतलब when I started my earning journey, उस time पे तो मतलब इतना ज़्यादा awareness था भी नहीं, and we didn't really have so many avenues that we could look at, right? And I'm talking about what 12, 13 years, 15 years
2012,
ago.
13 area.
हाँ मतलब फर्स्ट सैलरी मेरे को मिला था 2010 में. तो उस टाइम पे तो मतलब कुछ था नहीं, राइट? एंड सिंस देन थिंग्स हैव चेंज्ड अ लॉट एंड नाउ देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ अवेयरनेस एंड एवरीथिंग. तो अवेयरनेस आल्सो हर्ट्स इन अ वे. लाइक अभी सेड वो डोपामाइन के लिए एवरीबॉडी इज asking for your attention ki matlab you give me your attention, we are ready to make products for you. And as I said, right, if you are on the you're on that same side basically and you're competing with people, there are a lot of people who are plotting their downfall, तो तुम्हारे favor में ही वो काम करेगा if you are someone who is just maintaining focus.
Exactly.
So that is generally that will help you. ठीक है चलो. So we'll have a rapid fire round, एकदम quick quick round. Okay, so we'll start with the first segment. Abid, you have to give me one word to describe the following. ठीक है.
Mhm.
ULIPs, unit linked insurance
Daylight
policies.
robbery.
Like robbery.
Then credit cards,
Pit of snakes.
futures and options,
Weapons of mass destruction.
gold as an investment,
Necessary evil.
trading cryptocurrencies.
Stupidity.
Then you'll have two options. You have to choose one of them.
Mhm.
All right. The experience that taught you more, I am Ahmedabad or Sensible 1.0.
Sensible 1.0.
Term deposits / fixed deposits versus SIPs.
SIPs.
Buying a house or renting a house.
It depends on who you are. If you're emotional about, like, if you really, really bad, but if economic utility, rent a house, no questions, just rent a
Okay.
house, economic utility.
Best way to learn finance, books or through YouTube?
YouTube.
I think channel भी depend करता है. You can't randomly.
Also buy premium, because if you don't buy premium, you'll get an ad by some scammer and you might just go to that scammer.
Yes.
True. Then I have some questions. You can, as in, you can be descriptive in these. What to do with your first salary?
Do something nice for the person who has sacrificed most things in the life for you, which most probably for most people, it's either their mother or father. So
Gaurav,
do
you wanted to add something?
Yeah.
Sorry, Abid.
Me, I remember I bought a sari and took my mom dad to a five-star hotel for dinner. So that was a stuff that I did. So yeah, I think that is important because that happiness, no money can buy that happiness and that feeling, that emotion. वो कुछ है ही नहीं उसका मतलब आप उसको मेजर ही नहीं करते. That's priceless.
Great. Next question. What's the biggest mistake that young investors make?
Trying to get rich quickly.
This is what I have done, and in a there's a mistake series video on Sensible. I think I have narrated my story there, and I remember Raghuram Rajan saying this: never be a fan of quick money or never be a fan of get rich quick scheme.
But we'll just explain why, right?
Hmm.
See, it's almost like, what's the formula of kinetic energy?
Half MV square.
Yeah.
Yes, my man, very nice. So if you take your car out and go to Mysore, because that's the highway closest to my home, if you drive at 80, you'll get there. If you drive at 100, yeah, chances are that you'll still get there 99%. If you drive past 140, and if you're 180 plus for the entire 100-kilometer stretch, there's like a 99% chance you might not get there. So V square in driving speed is almost like the return of on equity, because for every 1% extra return you seek, you are not exactly adding 1% extra risk. The risks you add are disproportionate. In fact, I'm not making this up. This is what efficient frontier hypothesis is in finance. So incremental return does not come with incremental risk. It comes from exponential risk.
Yes.
Generally, if you try to get rich quickly, at some point that exponential rich will catch you. And it's like what Naval says, right? Everyone knows how to get rich. It's just that they try to do it quickly.
Right.
Yes.
All
Pro
right.
tip.
Next question. 3 things you would tell your younger self.
That's a tough one. Okay, so uh, I definitely would want I wish my younger self was nicer and kinder to people in my life at the time my younger self existed, right? That's definitely the only thing I would want. See, I'm largely happy with everything else which has happened in my life. So I don't have a 2 and 3, right? I can say that, yeah, I wish I could have studied. um like I could have said, oh, if I had studied and had a higher CGPA, my life would have been better. Maybe it would have been better. Maybe it would have been worse. If I had studied that much and got into an investment bank, maybe I would have never found it sensible, right?
Hmm.
Or I could have said no extra corrects, only do one thing and one thing alone. Who knows, you dude? If I did not do that side business stuff in my particular case, probably I wouldn't have been online or on Twitter or see, for example, the entire content of Sensible initially was just me because I had an amateur interest of making videos, right? I didn't do it for money, but I really liked making videos. So if you were to say more CGPA, more focus, do one thing alone and all, like could have been better, could have been worse. But I know the only thing which I'm sure of is if I'd been nicer to people, life would have been definitely better. So that's the only thing.
All right. 3 things you are looking forward to do next.
See, the thing is, I genuinely believe there is a lot of scope to improve people's financial lives in India
Hmm.
by giving this extremely simple thought principles like we are doing right now, right? Like, for example, or just teaching people a better life. Like, see,
Hmm.
when I was 25, if there was somebody who could tell me these things, my life would have been incrementally better for sure. I wouldn't have worried so much about money and all, right?
Hmm.
But I know for a fact these days there are a lot of people who could use words of experience coming from people who have seen this entire cycle. So personal finance in India requires a really, really bad overhaul because unfortunately there's nobody doing a good job without any ulterior motive in this space, right? It's a
Hmm.
personal finance in India is largely becoming a selling commission product game. Somebody has to stop that game and has to disrupt the space with a better business model. Um, this is one thing which I would be really, really excited about doing. And interestingly, from a work point of view, there's nothing else I want to do, right? There's no two and three. And that is because key boss, uh, how do I put it? Um, I can't have a two and three because this is a all-in problem. If you are going to solve this, you have to do this and nothing else. So we are in the transition space between this option trading platform and figuring out what is it that we can do in this space now. So this is the only thing I want to do work-wise now. That's it.
So after Telegram tipsters, personal finance tipsters, be ready.
Nice. And one question I have and one question we have got from the audience. So one is one book that you would recommend to the viewers.
Well, there are so many, but it's a very, very tough one.
You can recommend multiple as well. Chalo.
See, if you are looking for a business book, I would say I liked Ray Dalio's Principles a lot, among the ones which I read recently.
Hmm.
Um, if you want like a sudden change in your life, to in terms of self-improvement and all, I would say you should definitely possibly Atomic Habits because that's
Hmm.
the highest delta suddenly on a person who wants to change their habits. Uh, yeah, I would. These are the ones which I read in the last 1 or 2 years, which I think stands out.
One thing would be that Naval Ravikant's book. I just forget that book's
Almanac.
name. The Almanac of.
Almanac of Travel.
And due to social media, I think Abid had posted one book's name. I remember. I have bought that book, read that book, but no, I don't remember the name.
Digital minimalism.
Ha.
Data minimalism. Yes. All right. And one question, both of you. How to build a career in finance? I know it's not the scope of this session, but we have a lot of people, and considering that we have both of you on the panel. So, if someone wants to build a career in finance, two things. One, what all traits should they ideally have? And second thing, what should they do in terms of content? What do you think?
I let Gaurav take that first.
Okay, so my answer is will be a little wide because for me doing finance was to get out of like was to improve my family's life financially. So it was more to do. It was a function of my social economic circumstances and not my what do you call career thing. So I have been watching the markets this since my eighth standard, and so I always wanted to get into finance. So that is it. I took a different route via engineering. That's a different story, and I never understood what do you call basic fundamental thesis because I was more attracted towards technical analysis, which I've been doing from past 13 years. So someone who like I had that answer ki I want to do this. I was not able to get through the door ki finance mein kaise घुसे. So you have to. So one thing that you can do is do an MBA. What people usually take the route is like do an MBA. Along with your MBA, you do your CFA and FRM, and then you get through equity research firm, and that's how you do it. Someone who's a CA has a direct entry there, or if you are not both, then there's one more field that you can look at it is the CMT side or the CFT or algo trading side. Then that's how people get into it. And if you're passionate enough, I think you'll reach there. That I can vouch for it because I am not from a top tier B school. I am not amongst the top CGPAs in the world. But I had this one thing was to be in the finance field and be in the technical side. And today I am there and I'm working there. So it's about passion and or the normal route is to CA, CFA, FRM, and MBA.
I have a reverse question to that. Who asked this question? How do I get into finance?
So
Because
there is.
because that's a very wrong question. I'll tell you why it's the wrong question, right? See, it's like me asking, how do I get into sports? It's a very wrong question. Because if I was somebody who really appreciated a sport and my passion was in the sport, my question will not be how to get into sport. My question would be how to become a Formula One driver, or how to become like a center forward in a football, or how to become like a really good tennis player, right? I won't ask how do I become a good sportsman. That's because somebody thinks ki there's something in sports which I can get, and not thinking ki there's something in sports which I want to become. And this is a very important distinction. If you want to become something, you will be very specific. See, or let me put it this way, right? I hate everything in finance except one field, which is trading. I never had a question, how do I get into finance? Right? If somebody tells me, Ki boss, do you want to become private equity? My answer is no. If you want to get into investment banking, my answer is no. Do I want to be into accounting? My answer is no. Do I want to become a financial controller of a company? My answer is no. Do I want to become an angel investor? My answer is no. Unless, of course, I like a company but that's not because I like investing. I only like derivative trading because I kind of like it, right? So my answer, the problem with this question is that this question is motivated probably because this person wants to make money from finance. And private equity, accounting, trading, investing, they are all 90-degree jobs. I don't think there is any trait which a derivative trader shares with an accountant. Right? It could be that both of these people are good at numbers. Maybe there are people who are common in those two, but somebody who's passionate about derivative trading is highly unlikely to be passionate about accounting. Right? I promise you, if you give me a balance sheet of a company right now and ask me to look at it for 15 minutes, I'll probably leave. Right? I'll fall asleep. I can't do it. My God, my CA team is keeping me out of jail, to be very honest. Like so. Uh, this question should not be asked, because if you are thinking ki boss, I want to get into finance, there's a fundamental problem. You have not discovered what you're good at. You have not discovered what you're passionate about. This is like when I was in second year of first year of IIMA, I was like, I want to get into investment banking. Right? Now the problem is I had no idea what is investment banking. I had no idea what it involves. I don't know what a day in the life of an investment banker looks like. Funnily enough, I did intern in investment banking. I actually did a merger and acquisition. I did not write a Faltu report. I was actually in a real acquisition and a post-acquisition listing of a private company somewhere in Netherlands or something. And I realized one thing at the end of 2 months, भैया ये हमको नहीं करना. Right? I was very crystal clear कि कुछ भी हो जाए ये नहीं करना, because you are not really doing something exciting. 90% of the times you're making draft red herring prospectus and calling tax guys and thinking of intercontinental. Boss, you want to know what is the most boring topic in the world, probably for a person like me, of course not for a person who's a CA, so international tax code. Bhai Saab, like it's very difficult to beat that in terms of boredom. So this is the majority of life of an investment banker in the first 3-4 years at least. Of course, after that you go all gangster and become like a deal maker and all. But for the first few years, you're just a person who writes a draft trading red herring prospectus of 140 pages and mind-numbingly spell checks and corrects them. And I think AI is going to take over a lot of that job also. So please don't ask the question, if you're asking the question, how do I get into finance? It says one thing very clearly, that you haven't discovered what is it that you're passionate about and what is it that you truly enjoy doing. So please introspect some more and find out what is it that you truly enjoy doing. Because if there is something which you're again truly good at doing, it doesn't matter what it is, money will come. I know it is super cliched advice of what Funsuk Wangdu said in Three Idiots, perhaps, but cliched as it is, the reality is that, boss. I know so many people from my batch who are not in finance, who are outperforming their finance colleagues in how much money they make. There's not even like a comparison between, see, if you're an average finance guy, you'll make more money than an average marketing guy. But the question you have to ask yourself is that what you want to be, an average finance
Right.
guy? So please don't be, please don't become average at a job that pays you well. Please become extremely good at any kind of job, and that will pay you spectacularly well.
Absolutely.
Nice.
So I
Very
have
well
one
said,
question,
Abid.
one last
Yeah,
question, I think.
yeah, Gaurav.
Abid, one person who has made a difference in your life.
My mother. No questions asked, boss. Like single mother, lost husband early on, brought up all three children, educated them, told them uh, the importance of studying. It's really, really difficult to be a lone parent of three children and make sure that all of them educated. I mean, like, dude, come on, like that's like a like. See, the thing is this, right? See, I would consider myself to be a fairly tenacious person because I've had a very lot of very difficult situations in life where tenacity is the only thing which saw me past the difficulty, right? Um, uh, for example, insensible when chips were low, ye wo, etc. But I don't think any of those instances of my tenacity comes even 10 to 20% close to the tenacity of a mother to bring up her children with practically zero extended familial or societal or worldly support. So, yeah, it's a no-brainer answer for me.
I think Shashank sir also has the same story.
Yeah, something similar.
Yeah,
Yes.
something like that.
But how other way, so of course it makes a big difference, and you learn a lot of things. Those
Anti
failures
OP.
teach you a lot, and
Anti
you are
OP.
more grounded. Yeah, yeah. So when you suddenly get money or you suddenly get I don't know successful, let's say in whatever context, you don't really feel कि हाँ मतलब अभी तो मतलब you are in a different zone altogether. So it keeps you grounded. I think it's a good experience overall as well. Chalo, great. So I think we will close it at
Yeah.
this point. Thank you,
We have
Abid, so
extended the
much
time
for
by
it was
15 minutes
very
as well.
gracious. Yeah. We overshot a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Abid, with that back, I'm so glad that you turned up. You still managed to come for the session. I'm so thankful.
No
And I'm
worries.
sure all the people enjoyed it. One thing that I wanted to quote at the end, there is this book, might not be the best financial book, but it's called Fight Club. There is a nice quote there, right? We buy things we don't need with the money we don't have to impress people we don't like. So that is basically what personal finance is for a lot of people these days. This I think gave you an insight that it's not about percentages, it's not about having everything on Excel sheets. Excel sheet पे तो मतलब you can become a millionaire in 10 minutes अगर वही करना है तो, right? But it's not about that. It goes much deeper than that. It's about your psyche at the end of the day and the experiences that you go through that basically develop it for you. So I hope all of you had a good time. Any parting
I'll just
thoughts,
end
Abid,
this
Gaurav?
with
Yes.
Abid is still the JP Nagar bear cartel
Bear
president.
cartel.
So anyone
Yes.
who listens to this term, so president is here, so you can follow him on X to get more insights about the market. Abid, thank you so much because we know how bad your back is, but thank you for making it on a Sunday morning. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
very happy to do this.
Yes. Chalo.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right.